Welcome to AI TV News. In the Atlantic, a complicated and potentially dangerous weather setup is taking shape. Hurricane Humberto and a nearby disturbance that may soon be named Imelda are drifting toward each other, raising the odds of a rare interaction called the Fujiwhara effect. That possible storm dance is the wild card in the forecast for the U.S. East Coast. Humberto is already a hurricane, with sustained winds of about 75 miles per hour. It is expected to intensify through the weekend, possibly reaching major hurricane strength. Current forecasts keep Humberto offshore, though Bermuda could feel wind and rain early next week. The second player is Invest 94L, a vigorous tropical wave near the Dominican Republic that is dropping heavy rain and gusty winds across parts of the Caribbean. Forecasters give it a 90% chance of becoming a tropical depression or tropical storm Imelda within the next 7 days as it moves toward the Bahamas. Of the two systems, this one poses the more immediate threat to the U.S. mainland, especially the Carolinas. Here's where things get tricky. When two cyclones in the same ocean basin come within roughly 900 miles of one another, they can begin orbiting a shared center. That interaction, first described in the 1920s by Japanese meteorologist Dr. Sakuhei Fujiwhara, is known as the Fujiwhara effect. Think of it as two figure skaters linked by an invisible cord. A stronger storm can dominate, pulling the weaker one into its circulation and eventually absorbing it. If their strengths are similar, they may spin around each other, slingshot apart, or even merge into a single larger system. Any of those outcomes can bend their tracks in unexpected directions. While Fujiwhara pairings are more common in the Pacific, the Atlantic saw one as recently as 2023 when tropical storms Philippe and Rina briefly interacted. A repeat performance this year would play out uncomfortably close to the U.S. coast. Several scenarios are on the table. Humberto rapidly intensifies and tugs the smaller storm out to sea, sparing the coastline. Invest 94L strengthens enough to resist that pull, continuing on a path toward the southeast. In that case, the Carolinas could face landfall early next week. A true Fujiwhara dance develops, sending both storms on erratic, hard-to-predict tracks. Regardless of which outcome wins, a surge of tropical moisture is expected to sweep into the southeast this weekend. That raises the threat of heavy rain and flash flooding across the Carolinas, with damaging winds and coastal surge possible if the developing storm comes ashore. Emergency managers in South Carolina are already urging residents to keep a close eye on updates. Meteorologists emphasize that this is one of the most complex forecasts of the season. The key questions: how quickly does Invest 94L organize near the Bahamas, and how close do the two systems actually get? Answers will come over the next 48 to 72 hours. Until then, anyone along the East Coast, especially from Georgia to Virginia, should monitor the National Hurricane Center for the latest advisories and be ready to act if watches or warnings are issued. That's the latest on Humberto, the potential Imelda, and their possible Fujiwhara dance. Stay informed, stay prepared, and keep it tuned to AI TV News. In an emergency, we all know the three numbers to call: 911. But for several tense hours on Thursday, September 25, 2025, that lifeline went dead for thousands of people in Mississippi and Louisiana. The first warning signs came around 1:30 p.m. Callers heard nothing but silence or a dead line. By 2 p.m., authorities realized the outage was widespread. Dozens of counties in Mississippi, including the capital Jackson, were affected. In Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and other population centers were also cut off, according to Good Morning America. With 911 down, police and fire departments rushed to social media, posting 10-digit backup numbers. The public responded, but the sudden flood of calls strained those alternate lines as well. WLBT in Mississippi reported that some non-emergency systems nearly collapsed under the volume. So what went wrong? Officials quickly ruled out hackers or sabotage. The culprit was far more ordinary, yet just as dangerous: multiple accidental cuts to AT&T fiber optic cables, including a major break in Mississippi. That single incident triggered a domino effect across the region. To understand how one severed cable can silence an entire emergency network, think of 911 as a giant web. When you dial, your call travels through buried fiber lines to a public safety answering point, the 911 call center. Fiber optic cables are bundles of glass strands, each thinner than a human hair, that move data as pulses of light. They're incredibly fast and efficient, but they're also physical objects. Slice through the right bundle, and every call that would have used that route hits a dead end. AT&T acknowledged the break and dispatched repair crews immediately. State and local officials coordinated with the company, providing updates while urging residents to keep trying alternate numbers. By roughly 4 p.m., some areas were back online. Between 4:45 and 6 p.m., officials in both states confirmed full restoration. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves announced the all-clear in a social media post. The outage wasn't uniform. In some places, landlines still reached 911 while cell phones failed. In New Orleans, calls from certain carriers went through, while others, ironically including AT&T's own FirstNet service for first responders, did not. The patchwork impact highlighted a technological divide that's been simmering for years. Take Livingston Parish, Louisiana. Officials there said their 911 never went down because they've already upgraded to Next Generation 911, or NG 911. Unlike the older analog system that routes calls over a handful of physical lines, NG 911 uses a digital, internet-based network designed with more redundancy. When one path fails, traffic can automatically switch to another. Thursday's outage offered a real-world case study in why many states are racing to adopt the new standard. By early evening, the crisis was over, but the questions it raised remain. Fiber cuts are usually accidents, construction crews digging in the wrong spot, or a backhoe hitting a conduit. Yet a single mishap sidelined emergency services across 2 states. As our infrastructure grows more complex, so do its points of failure. The lesson is simple. The invisible networks that keep us safe are only as reliable as the physical lines, protocols, and backup plans behind them. Thursday's outage lasted a few hours. The next one could be longer or hit somewhere less prepared. Upgrading to more resilient systems like NG 911 and protecting the miles of fiber in the ground may be the best insurance we have that when you dial those 3 familiar numbers, someone will always pick up.
A mystery is unfolding in the skies over Denmark, disrupting travel and rattling nerves across Europe. For several days, unidentified drones have buzzed above major airports and sensitive military sites, forcing temporary airspace closures at Copenhagen, Aalborg, and several regional hubs. One episode even spilled over to Oslo's airport in neighboring Norway. Flights were canceled, passengers were stranded, and airport loudspeakers echoed with delay announcements. These drones haven't limited themselves to civilian targets. They were also spotted near Skrystrup Air Base, home to Denmark's F-16s and F-35s, and around a barracks in Holstebro. The pattern led Danish Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen to brand the incursions a hybrid attack. So what exactly is a hybrid attack? Think of it as conflict in the gray zone, tactics that stop short of open warfare, but still aim to destabilize a country. Sabotage, disinformation, cyber intrusions, anything that stirs fear and confusion without a single shot being fired. Danish officials say the drone flights look like a systematic operation carried out by a professional actor, given how coordinated and widespread the sightings have been. The obvious question is, who's behind it? Officially, Copenhagen hasn't named names. Unofficially, suspicion falls on Russia, a country already accused of probing NATO defenses through airspace violations in places like Poland and Estonia. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says Russian involvement cannot be ruled out. Moscow, for its part, calls the claim baseless and labels the incidents a staged provocation. Motives aside, the impact is real. Danish Justice Minister Peter Hummelgaard says the likely goal is to sow fear and division. The strategy appears to be working. Travelers are anxious, airlines are losing money, and Denmark's image as an easy, carefree destination has taken a hit. Military planners worry the drones are also testing response times, probing how quickly NATO can react when critical infrastructure is threatened. Denmark isn't facing this challenge alone. The national police are on high alert, and the government is weighing an appeal to NATO's Article 4, which triggers formal consultations whenever a member feels its security is at risk. Behind the scenes, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte confirms the alliance is helping Denmark shore up defenses around airports, bases, and energy facilities. New tools and rules are coming as well. Copenhagen plans to buy advanced drone detection systems and may push legislation that lets infrastructure owners shoot down trespassing drones, something the military hesitated to do in populated areas. European ministers are even floating the idea of a continental drone wall, an integrated network of sensors and defenses stretching across multiple countries. In the short term, travelers can expect more bag checks, flight delays, and sudden gate changes whenever a drone pops up on radar. In the longer term, these incidents mark an unsettling shift in modern security. Conflict no longer begins with tanks at the border, but with tiny buzzing machines above an airport runway. Denmark's response over the next weeks, whether it invokes Article 4, installs new detection gear, or helps build that drone wall, will offer a glimpse of how democracies adapt to threats that are invisible until they're right overhead. For now, the skies remain uneasy. The investigation continues, and the world is left watching the drones and whoever is piloting them from below.